For Creamer Media's Policy, I'm Sashni Murli. Joining me today is Liza Smit, here to discuss her book, I Am Liza Smit. Now, your book centers around the highly publicized 1977 murders of your parents, Robert and Jeanne Smit, and details your quest to find answers about why they were murdered. It's more than 40 years later. Why did you decide to write the book now?
The book was actually to leave a legacy for my children. That was the whole idea of the book. It wasn't to write about the murders, but they needed to know who their grandparents were and what their heritage was, because they didn't know. They didn't know how I grew up, who my family was, because we were cut off from family at the time of the murder. We were taken to the Free State, and I lost contact basically with the whole family. And I travelled a very long journey from the time the murders happened. A lot of things happened. I made a lot of choices and decisions which wouldn't have been like that if my parents were still alive. And I felt it was necessary for my children to know why I made certain decisions in my life. And it was for healing as well. The book brought me healing.
Why do you believe that your parents' murders were politically motivated, and do you have any idea who may be behind it?
It was very early after the murders that the rumours already started, because my father had just before, probably a week before that, actually he was afraid that somebody would kill Pik Botha, Minister Pik Botha of Foreign Affairs. So when they were murdered, it didn't take long. It was almost a week that everybody started with the rumour. It was politically motivated. Then when I went to the farm and we were cut off, I had no interaction with any media or newspapers or saw anything. Once I was back in Pretoria and studying, and I got married, and then I got involved. I started with my own research with the TRC, because journalists contacted me actually to ask me if we were going to do a submission. And when they found that it was a political murder and it was executed through the National Party, that's how I know it is. You know, there's no doubt.
Tell us a bit about your parents and about how you remembered them before they were murdered.
Yes, well, how everybody knows them is not how I remember them. My mother was my anchor. She was my rock. You know, we were a very lovable family, very much so. Emotional family, meaning that there was always interest in your day, or if you had a problem or anything like that. If I had done something wrong, they would have scolded me, but she would have always, and my father would have always asked me why I did that, or what did I think while I was doing that. Didn't you realize it was wrong? So I was always given the chance to give my side. But it was really, they were family people. Even though he had this position he always had time for family, and especially over weekends. You know, and we were very loved, and we knew that.
Now, you undertook private investigations into your parents' murders, and after hitting many brick walls, you also received plenty of death threats. Tell us about some of them and about why this didn't deter you.
The threats that came to me, it was more of an intimidation type of thing, because we stayed outside on a plot, and it was very easy to actually, if they wanted to kill me, to do it. And everything that had happened in the warnings, and to me, it brought out the opposite. I wasn't scared. You know, actually, it made me more adamant, you know, to say, listen, don't do these threats. Come out, just come out. Because I realized, because I did it with Alette van Rensburg. She was also a journalist at that time. And we went everywhere. Somebody told me to go to this person, and we went to this person, and he'd say, you must see that guy. And that's how it went. And when all these threats started, I think how I experienced it at that time was that we're getting close to something, because why are they threatening? Why is this happening? And I actually, I've forgotten about some of the things they had done. My daughter actually reminded me yesterday, you know, that we had picture framed in the house where you've got a lot of pictures in one frame of your family. And everywhere where I was, they had drawn a cross through my face. I'd forgotten about that. That's not even in the book because I'd forgotten about it. I think I was naive, very naive, to actually realize the danger that there was. And I probably wouldn't have stopped if it wasn't for the witness protection program. They said, now we're taking you away. It's getting dangerous, because they were targeting my children at that stage.
Yeah. Now, who is Roy Allen and why is he part of the story?
Roy Allen came because of RAU TEM. RAU TEM, I feel, we had that spray, that can of spray. My mother had red spray paint for the campaigning. So it wasn't something that was brought into the house at the time of the murder to be sprayed all over the kitchen or whatever. I think it was something that was done on impulse as a message amongst each other, because it wasn't just one person that came in. There was one, obviously, that shot my mother. There were two present when they shot my father at the same time. So they went out, other people came in and did the sweeping and the cleaning, and somebody else did the stab wounds. It's really like that. That's what I heard from all these special forces people I went and saw. So everybody tried to get a reason for RAU TEM, what it means. And the RA immediately, they jumped to Roy Allen, because Roy Allen's wife had worked for my father. And I met Roy Allen on 2 occasions. The first time I just pitched, I spoke about that in the book. You can read about that there. So I'm not convinced that it was him, because they're not going to spray their letters there, I think it was just like a language amongst themselves.
Talk to us about an unusual weekend just before your parents died, that they were behaving strangely. What do you remember?
Yes, it was quite different, because my parents were in Pretoria much earlier than they normally would be. That I know now afterwards, because we were in school. But I know that my father had gone to John Foster, where he was like daily in the last week or 2 before his death. He was there on Friday, and my mother went to her sister, and it was also at around 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, and she said to her sister, please just pour me a whiskey. And her sister said, what's wrong? And she says, I can't talk about it. And then everything was just different. We went through to Springswood, we came back. It wasn't like normal that we were there the whole weekend and helped with the campaigning. And we took out my grandmother for lunch, which we also never did. She came to us. In hindsight, I remembered how they went outside. They never spoke inside. They'd go outside and discuss something. It wasn't the typical family weekend where we would be doing something specific or with the campaigning. It was just completely different. But once again, at the time, I didn't realize it.
And tell us about the moment that you found out that your parents were murdered. What was your reaction?
Everybody wants to know that. It's such a strange thing hearing that, I was told something terrible had happened. And I asked what, and they said, your parents are dead. And you hear this, but you don't grasp. And I just said, what happened? I was thinking of an accident and they said to me, no, they were murdered. And I still didn't realize, because I think my mother, the way she brought us up was very overprotective as well. I wasn't exposed to this type of thing, violence or anything like that. So hearing this didn't really make sense. I didn't really know what it was. What was murdering? What was... I think the moment that it sank in was when we went home, that when we first picked up my brother at school, and then we couldn't get close to the house because of the amount of cars that were all over there, media, and they told me to stay in the back of the car. I don't know where my brother was at that stage. I know he was with us at the stage. I don't know where he went. I've got these gaps. And they threw a blanket over me, and they said, they're going into the house first, I must wait, because there are too many journalists. like just they woof over. And I was under this blanket and still not really understanding. And I put the radio on. It was exactly 12 o'clock. And this trumpet of radio, I can't remember, Hoofveld. It's exactly 12 o'clock and he volgde in Nice. And the first thing they said, they were talking about my parents' murder. You know, sort of, they're talking about my mom and dad, it's true. So I jumped out the car and I ran into the house and I phoned the NP officers, and the secretary said to me, just hold on, when I asked for my dad. And I thought, now something's very wrong here because they're putting me through. And when another gentleman answered and asked who I was, I said, I'm his daughter. And he said, my God, are they children? Then I realized they were dead. The fact that they were murdered, that I still didn't understand completely until much later in my life.
And in the book, you speak about a time where you and your brother were taken back to the crime scene and, you know, the blood was still there.
Yeah.
Why do you think they took you back?
That I can't answer you. I don't know why they did that. You do not do that to a child. You know, it's horrific. We were told all the way on our way there, you know, they're not there anymore, their bodies aren't there, but what you're going to see is going to be the blood. And they said they needed to take our fingerprints, but that they could have done at a police station or even at our home. So I can't answer you why they took us there. And as I walked into the house, the first thing was this heap of, it looked to me like jelly, you know, dark. And I looked at it and the man just explained to me, oh, that's where your father fell, that's where he bled. And he was there for quite a while before they took him. Then you could see how it broke, you know, and into the passage. That was terrible because that was the reality. That's where you hit with the reality. And I tried to look for something familiar, you know, and you don't see it. Only once I got to where my mother was, I saw her glove. So I think at that moment I sort of emotionally switched off.
And they never did take your fingerprints?
No. So I still don't know how we went there. I really don't.
Is your parents' case still open, and has there been any progress since your submissions to the TRC?
Yeah, well, at the time of the TRC submissions, we were pushing because they wanted to close murder after 20 years. Then they would close the docket. And we managed to get that through, that a murder would never close. They would never close the docket. So it is still open. Where the docket is, I don't know. I don't know where it is at the moment. The last time I saw it was at the Attorney General's offices at the time of the TRC. I don't even know if half of the docket is there, what has been taken out. There was fiddling with the docket in the beginning, you know, evidence was destroyed. So I don't know where it is. And I don't think anyone is working on it actively at all. It's somewhere in a cupboard or...
Was writing this book a catharsis for you?
Oh, most definitely. Like I said, that wasn't the main aim. It was just to sort of leave my children a legacy of telling them about this wonderful family. And when I started with this book, it made that I got contact with family that I haven't had contact with for 40 years. And started talking to them and getting to know my parents through their eyes, things that I didn't know. Because I lost them as a child. I never had the opportunity to know them as a grown-up. So this time around when I spoke to family, you know, to me that was healing. Raquel forced me back to a lot of places that I had cut off, that I never thought about again. And all these emotions and memories started coming up. And I needed to deal with that. And through writing it down brings a tremendous amount of healing. And I think this is what I'm telling everyone, is what this has given me, is it's okay never to be okay. It's okay. Because that is not okay. But I'm okay that I'm not okay. I will never accept it. You can't deal with it. You can't carry on with your life. Well, you carry on, but people tell you you have to accept it. You know, it is what it is. yeah, it is what it is, but it doesn't mean I have to accept it. And it's okay that I don't, because that's not okay.
That was Liza Smit discussing her book, I Am Liza Smit.